Hello, I'm Chris, this is Gross Models, and this is a build for emodels.co.uk. The Lindberg Science Kit's Skeletal Foot. This is a 1:1 scale kit, so it's life size, as it says down here, fully articulated, life size, anatomically accurate model kit. So, we'll get into the box and see what we have. Now, in here we have, obviously, instruction sheet. Some not really stickers, well they are stickers but they're not display type stickers, they're medical stickers if you like. Because it has a display base, you can put this big sticker on the back of the display base, and it's got labels for the bones in the foot, the fibula, talus, tibia, calcaneus, cuboid, intermediate, cuneiform. Oh yeah, I'm not going to read them all out, but there we go. We have the middle phalanges. Folks will like that one. And distal phalanges as well. Lots of phalanges, all the phalanges. Got the dancing phalanges. It's in a bag. I don't need that until the very, very end, if I'm even going to put them on. We'll figure out about that as it goes. I shall get the bag open and we'll see what we've got. But before I do that, let's have a look at the instruction manual. So let's move that out of the way. That can go back in the box because I don't need that for now. Let's have a quick look at the box while we're here. It's got obviously pictures of the foot, moulded in bone white plastic. This model of the foot can be flexed into lifelike positions. Full assembly instructions and an educational anatomy chart that explains the workings of the foot are included in the kit. Mounted on its identification stand, it becomes a fine educational model. So yes, we've got basically little pictures on the sides and lots of stuff in various different languages, so we don't need to worry about that. Right, the instruction manual itself is obviously not a complex build. The whole point of these is not that they're difficult model kits to build or do anything with, but they're accurate. They're designed to be an accurate representation. So the build itself is not going to take very long. It's not going to be very difficult. Obviously, putting bits in, feet, toes together, putting the toes together, putting the ankle together, and then putting it on a stand. Not exactly difficult. The interesting page is the back one, which is a medical sort of version, giving you a little bit of more information. Foot consists of an ankle, instep, 5 toes and ankles and stuff, and it obviously then labels all of the bones and the different bits, range of ankle movement, other bits inside bones and things, and yeah. So I'll get the bits out of the plastic and we'll see what the kit looks like. Right, even without looking at the instructions, it's pretty simple to understand what's going to be happening. Obviously we've got the main assembly that goes together, something like that. There's little bits of flash here and there, but not loads. There'll be a little bit of tidying up to do on some seam lines, but again, not too much to worry about. The stand obviously looks nothing like it does on the box. It's obviously designed for the nameplate to be stuck onto. We have, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another part of the ankle probably. So we've got the 5 toes and another bit. We've got the tops of the 5 toes and the other bit, or the bottoms. I don't know which one's which. Those 2 bits I figured out. They obviously again match up and will go together something like that. We've got those 2 bits. Let's go that way around. So that's obviously going to go over there. That's going to go, I don't know, we'll figure it out. I will actually use the instructions. That's obviously the bottom, because that's what goes on to the stand itself. The one bit that's not accurate is the hole for the fitting. So that goes up to the rest of the leg. That will go onto there. That's obviously the heel. So somehow that bit goes into that bit. Oh, there we go. Pretty much like that. So there we have it. That's obviously the 4, and that will be the main. That's what the big bit is. It's the main big toe first bit. It's the metatarsal medial cuneiform, apparently, according to the sheet, if I'm looking at the right bit. So yes, not too much to build. I'll get bits off sprues and we'll start building. In case anyone's completely new to model making, basically to get the pieces off of a sprue, what you need to do is use a pair of cutters, and you basically snip and cut them off. Now the end there may well leave a rough edge piece, so you can just sand that down a little bit to remove the roughness. You might need to go through a couple of different grades of sander or sanding paper, sanding stick, and basically until you get a finish that you're happy with, that you can't feel, and it's just there. Now these obviously go together as the toes, or the middle, the toe bones. There are little pegs and grooves that they snap into. Obviously they do need gluing together. The fit is a little bit sort of warped. On some of these older kits they can, if they get affected by temperature and things like that, but by putting a little bit of glue on it and basically holding it together for a minute or two, that should take care of all of that. So let's get that done. I'm going to use some Tamiya Extra Thin. Is my glue of choice for most polystyrene kits. So what I'm going to do with this is first of all get some on the pegs, and get the main parts of the kit located together and where they should be. This doesn't take very long at all for it to dry. It evaporates, so let's get some inside that join and down the first bit of the seam, and then I can hold that in place. So if I hold that for literally just a few seconds, that should be enough to glue that together. While I'm doing that, I might as well run some down the other visible seams there. Obviously the toes themselves, when they go together, won't actually be glued to the next bone along, so you've got sort of the articulation there, the movement. But for now, there's a little bit of a gap on that side. Get that through there and just squeeze it together. Before these get assembled onto it, I will be tidying up the seams and sorting them out, making sure everything looks good down there. So just a little bit of time holding it together, should be plenty. There you go, that's already come apart again. Give it a little bit more time than that, maybe a little bit more glue than that as well. There's quite a big area inside there. So I'll get all these toes glued together, and then we'll see about tidying up the seam lines, and then we'll see about putting them into the foot. Okay, that's all the toes stuck together. I need to make sure that's properly dry before I can tidy up the seams and do that. So basically I'm going to put that to one side. I'm going to do the same thing to the big toe, which is built in exactly the same way. Simply goes together like that. And the I don't know, the next bit along to the big toe, I should really look at the instructions and see what they're called. There we go. This will be the metatarsal thingy, big toe bit. That one, that bit there. Which once that's together, I can't put that together yet because that then goes into it the same way that these toes fit into the body of the foot. So basically it goes in there. You don't glue these in place, so they have the articulation there. So I can't glue that together yet, but I can get that one together, and then when that's ready I can glue that into there, and then that, if I don't drop it, oh, there we go, that goes together like that, and that goes onto there, so it all lines up. And then obviously we've got the big toe coming off the end there, and then when that's all together, that bit goes onto whichever way round it goes, because that's the heel, so that's got to be that way round. once that's together, that's that way around, that fits on there like that. So that's the whole of the foot, and then that fits into the two, obviously the bayonet type sort of pops in, which will be the last thing to do. So that's that. That can go together because they're both on one side anyway. So I'll get those bits together. I'll get not those bits together. I can get those bits together and the toe together, and then we'll worry about tidying up seam lines and things. So I'll just have that and that still to be fixed into one piece, and then all assembled. That's the fingers all sort of sanded down to get almost rid of. There's still a little bit visible there of sort of seam lines. Basically just spend a little bit of time going over them and tidying them up. When these do get painted, that's going to be almost gone. You can't actually feel it. It's just a sort of remnant of plastic distortion and things like that. Now, there are a couple of other things that I need to do on this. The knuckle joints aren't terribly well moulded, so I'm actually going to use a little knife and just almost sort of cut out, just sort of groove, just to increase the depth of some of these edges, especially where I've been sanding down a bit. It might have just caused it to come away a little bit, so that's just sort of tidying them up a little bit. That one is one I've already done, so you can see as it's got a better edge to those. Now these aren't articulated, obviously in a real foot they are, but they say fully articulated, but they don't really mean fully articulated. So yeah, that one there again is a little bit less pronounced than I would like, so I'm just tidying that up a little bit, making that a little bit more pronounced, and then trying to sand in the edge a little bit, just to take, I keep saying a little bit, it's all a little bit because it's a foot, but it's human scale, so you know. So once all that's done, and once all of the seam lines are gone, or as gone as it gets, there are a couple of areas where the join isn't quite right. You can see a couple of dark patches there. Now you can fill it with like a sprue glue or something like that, but I'm just going to use normal thick Tamiya glue, normal thick Tamiya glue, because it is such a small area. So just a couple of those spots there, I'm just going to add a little patch of glue, which will create a little plastic bubble. So I'm going to leave that to one side to dry. There's a more pronounced one you can hopefully just see right down into the middle of that. So I'm just going to give that a touch with the glue, and that should just fill up that little hole. Another bit on the end there. So once that's dried, it doesn't take as long as sprue glue to dry, it's not a 24-hour thing, but a good couple of hours. Make sure that's properly dried all the way through, not just dry on the surface, and then you can go in again and sand it down again and make it look tidier and neater. It's a little bit at the top here. So yeah, just making it as nice as I can, a little bit there. So I'm just going to run that down that seam. There was one that I saw that was worse that I was going to point out to you all, but I can't find it now. It's always on the last one, isn't it? Except it isn't now, I can't see it. That might have been it, right at the top there, which isn't really going to be visible, but might be, because that's obviously the join where it attaches to the rest of the foot. So I'll get the rest of those tidied up, then let them dry a bit and finish off the cutting out of sections just to make it a little bit nicer. The nice thing about sanding these is I don't want a perfectly smooth surface, because it's a bone finish, obviously, as you know, all of it is none of it is perfectly smooth. It's all got little bits of texture and things to it. So what I'm actually going to do is, when I've been sanding down, say, the joins and things, I'm going to deliberately go in with, again, the harsher sander in various different directions to not give it a uniform striation, just to make sure it blends in as well as I possibly can. So I'll get that done, and then we'll be ready to get the toes in and join it together. So I'll come back and show you that. That's the glue dried and sanded down again. The seams are almost invisible now. After they've been painted, they're going to be completely invisible. So I'm happy with how they've come out. Even on this bit, so you can see it now, but you can't feel it. So once it's got the painting on there next video, then that will be perfectly alright. I'm not unhappy with how that's come out. So the next bit is to get some of it together. So we have the bit next to the toe. Let's have a quick look. It's not on there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's on there. It's that bit. The metatarsal medial cuneiform, which, so you can't glue together as is because it needs that toe in there as well. So the trick is to get that in there and then glue it together, but glue it together in such a way that you don't glue that piece. So you still want that to have some movement there. So basically it's the same as I've done with those, but with an extra bit added to it. So again, there is going to be a little bit of filling needed to do on that. So I'll get that glued together. I'm not going to show you all of that again because it's exactly the same as doing that, but so just keeping that movement there. And the same again with all of the other 4 toes. So basically you need to get the toe in place and glue around it and make sure there is still the movement there. Obviously getting the toes in the right order. They're all different sizes, so it's easy to get them. Even though they're out of order at the moment, you can easily get them correct again. So again, once that's on, there'll be more sanding and possibly filling of a seam and sanding again. But I can get that piece done as a separate bit with the toes on it, obviously. And that piece done as a separate bit, and then we'll worry about putting them together. So we can do that afterwards. You don't have to do it as one. So once that's on there, that bit will go down there somewhere, whichever way up, the other way up, that way up there. It goes in there somewhere along the line. So it's there. It's going to go around there somewhere. We'll figure that bit out. But it doesn't need to be assembled in one piece. So I can do that first and then get that on there. Yeah, it's got this cut out. It goes into that triangular area there. So that bit goes on there. Pretty much like that. But we can do that afterwards. So I'm going to get that glued together, get it sanded down, and then show you it when I've got the piece ready to be moulded into one. While I'm waiting for these bits to dry, that one's looking pretty good. The foot still moves, the toe still moves even. There's, as I say, some seam line to clean up on there when the dry glue has fully dried, but I'll leave that for a few hours. These bits don't need any more doing to them at the moment, so I'm going to put them together now. They obviously just bang it in, making sure you get the 2 bones the correct way round. So following the instructions here, we've got that's that way round, because that obviously goes on to the rest of the foot, and that goes that way round. So it just sort of clips in just like that, nice and easy. So you've got articulation of the ankle, and then the foot can just go onto there. So it's coming together. Obviously that's, as I say, going to go on there like that. So yeah, it's getting there. When that's dry, I'll get the clamps off, file up and be done. That one is basically done. So yeah, the end is in sight. Well, that's it all sanded down and filled the gaps in with Tamiya thick glue, which is why some of it's a bit shiny, which ordinarily would be a problem, but it's going to be painted afterwards anyway, so I'm not worrying about that. That will come up you know, fine. Even the rough edges there are nice and smooth. So that's all fine. Now it's basically the final assembly. This bit obviously fits in nicely in there without any problems at all. And then we've got the big toe that goes onto there. Now I'm not sure if it should completely fill the gaps, but it doesn't. There's a big gap obviously underneath there, and sort of in the top here there's a seam, a gap as well. So as it's obviously going to be displayed from the top, I'm going to make sure the top bit fits properly and worry about the inside bit later, or possibly not at all. It depends how it goes when it goes together. So I'm going to get the foot onto there first. So again, back with the extra thin, just getting some coverage around the edge first. Now a lot of it will evaporate before I get it on there, but not all of it. So that gives me a starting point for it being locked in place, and then I can come back in and let it fill in the seam. Now obviously that's not a perfect join, perfect seam, but it's obviously two different bones, so that's okay. It doesn't matter that it doesn't join up 100%, because feet don't join up 100%. Bones do have gaps and joins in them. So that's that one. I will just hold that together to get that a nice tight seam in there, and then we'll do the same with the toe. Being extra thin, oh, my washer's fallen out. Let's hit that back in there and poke that back in, so it goes back where it should be. Yeah, that's nicer. It'll probably come out next time I use it, but there we go. So that's that one, and then I'm going to put the glue around there, because that triangle joins up to that triangle. So we get that in the right place there. I'm trying to juggle it all. I should probably do them one at a time so it sets, but that's that. I'll join that in there as well, and add some more glue down that when I can let go of it, when it's free to set a little bit. So yeah, I'll see you when it's assembled. Completed, all done, finished. Obviously, apart from the painting, the building is finished, shall we say. I haven't glued it onto the stand because obviously to paint underneath I'm going to need to get it out and free, and obviously I need to paint the stand in a different colour. But a couple of other little things that I'm going to do before that. There is, I say, a join down there which I'm going to fill in with glue basically. The top ankle obviously has movement there, as do all of the toes, but I'm actually going to glue them in place because I don't need them to be flopping around, and especially that one, it's when it's on the stand you can't have it, you know, nicely. So I'm just going to glue those all in place and get the toes, I say, lined up and looking nice, and then glue them in place as well, purely to make it easier to, you know, manipulate, and you don't need them to. It's going to be in a cabinet and display, so it doesn't need to be played around with. So I can get them into a decent position and just glue them in place. So I'll do that now. So fill that in with the thick glue. I'm just using the extra thin to glue the rest of it. So I'm just going to get it into that join, getting a good build up of it in there. And then I'll spend a couple of minutes just holding it in place. I'll put it back on the stand so we can see how it looks. It goes on like that. So that's at that sort of angle, so I want that about there. So I'm just going to hold that there, fill in the bits, and then when it's all finished in one piece I'll finish up. With the toes all glued in place so they're not moving, the one thing that is noticeable to me, the top all look fine, I've got no problems at all with that, that's all okay. The Tamiya thick glue has filled in that seam down there without any problem at all. But on the underside, there's still that big gap there, which I'm not overly happy with, but you're not going to see unless you pick it off the stand and have a look. But these bits here are a bit more prominent, a bit more noticeable. So what I'm going to do is fill those, but normal glue isn't just going to fill it because it's too much of a gap. So I've made up some sprue glue, which is Tamiya extra thin, which is why it's in an extra thin pot, with bits of sprue and polystyrene melted into it, making a gloopy, thin, white gloop. Basically, it's liquid sprue. That's what it is and what it does. So basically, by painting it over a gap, a hole, you're filling it with plastic again, and hopefully that will dry to give a almost indistinguishable from original kit finish. Now this does take a while to dry. It takes basically a day, 24 hours to dry, and what basically happens is the extra thin evaporates from it, leaving just the plastic. So it already looks better because it's filled it in the black hole with whitish sprue. I'll leave that up that way to dry. I'm going to fill in a little bit of this, but I'm not going to be able to get the whole thing without building it up with plasticard or something like that. But I can make it a little bit nicer, a little bit less prominent around the edges. So yeah, I'll leave this to dry, and then we can come back and see what it looks like tomorrow. Basically, whether I need another coat of it, we'll see how it ends up. Sometimes it shrinks to fit into the hole, but we'll see how it looks tomorrow. So there we have the completed build of the foot. It's not articulated anymore, but it's better for it, I think. It's just as it would normally be on display. So yeah, that's it for this build, or at least for this build video. Upcoming is going to be the painting of the foot to make it look a bit more sort of, I would say used, but not quite what I had in mind. But yeah, more realistic, more bony. As a medical model, it's perfectly fine as it is, but as a display piece, I think it needs a little bit more. So come back soon for part 2 of this build, which is going to be the painting. And I hope you've enjoyed watching so far. Don't forget, pop along. The foot is still, or should still be, available from emodels.co.uk. Go along, have a look and see. You get some other medical things as well. They do lots of these Lindberg kits. So yeah, I'll see you soon for the continuing foot saga. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.